This is the last Monday I'll ever have with you guys. May 21st, and we're going to get into me talking about stuff coming up this week. What's going to happen is today, tomorrow, Wednesday, I have 3 stories about me. And then Thursday is not a story about me. Thursday is going to be a story about you. And so it's a little bit different direction. If you've had past students come through my class and they've told you about my stories at the end, Thursdays is probably the one that they've talked about. The reason being is that today, tomorrow, and Wednesday are entertaining because they will definitely make you laugh because you're laughing at my pain. Yes. There will definitely be a lot of my pain in there, and that'll bring you happiness. But Thursday is about you, and you guys being teenagers and 7th graders, you're very self-centered. It's what comes naturally. So me talking about you will give it a lot more weight because it's all about you in one form or another. Then, is that for me? Oh, thank you. I can do that. Sign it, then move it on from there.
I think you're last.
Ooh, even better. Thank you, sir.
Yep.
So Thursday is the day that kids usually remember from there. Fridays, you guys don't get to have because it's the bonus day, and we don't meet on Friday. And so what will happen Friday is the field day is the first 2 hours of the day. And then we have half-hour class periods for 1st, 2nd, 3rd, all of 5th, half-hour for 4th, and then 6th and 7th. You guys do get to come here, but it's like for 5 minutes. We get to like high-five each other, and that's about it. And then we go from 6th period. We all go down to, we have a Heroes Final like party awards thing, and I get to hand out awards to you. You'll spend time with me, just not in this class. Because it's then me giving speeches like the whole Heroes team for that last little bit. And so 6th and 7th period, that last hour, we're all down there for the awards ceremony. We have Heroes of the Year, we have Students of the Year, and we give little awards and speeches and stuff like that. And so that'll be that last day, and then you guys are done from there. Covers all that. All right. Then, back to me. I didn't used to always end by year telling stories. This has been a relatively new development over the past several years, this sort of change from bits and pieces. I used to do what most teachers do, which is show movies the last week. I used to show Outsiders the last week because the kids have read it, and it's a good book and a good movie. And there's 2 reasons, by the way, teachers show movies this last week. One, a bit more obvious than the other. One is that you guys are insane the last week and are completely spastastic. Even good kids are spastastic. As you guys try, like, I'm trying to be good, and like, you just like see the drool just coming out as much as you guys try to. And so a flickering screen, you get kind of like sedated and drooly, and you're like, oh, I don't have to kill a kid, no lawsuit this year, which brings us lots of happiness. The other reason why teachers show movies is the one that you guys might not know about. We have homework that gets handed down to us by our bosses, that we have a bunch of paperwork that we have to fill out that is due at the very end of the year. And we don't want to do homework any more than you want to do homework. And so when we get this pile of paperwork for teachers, it's easy to do that work while you're sitting there watching the screen. It makes our life easier. So when you see the teachers over there working, that's usually what they're doing, either grading or going through and doing stuff like that. And that's what I did, and it was a wonderful time. Until things changed. And this would have been 5 or 6 years into teaching for me. And so at that time, I was after school, sitting in my chair over there, grading or working on my computer, doing something, and there was a knock on my door, and I looked up, and it was an 8th grader. And it was a kid I'd taught the year before, and so I'd seen him in the hallway, stuff like that. And there's a kid I had a fairly decent relationship with in 7th grade, but that was it. Knocked on the door, I'm like, yeah, what's up? And he's like, can I come in? I'm like, sure. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, I don't know, I was just in here, and I was wondering if I could like sit and talk for a little bit. I'm like, I guess. And just on my desk. And he came in and sat down, and then we just talked about life, how things have been going. I knew he had a bad home life, and so we sort of talked about how things were going with his parents, and how 8th graders were going, and the teachers, and the social stuff, and just talked for like an hour. And then at the end, he was like, all right, I gotta go. And I'm like, no problem, man, I'll see you later. And he took off and left. And that was weird, because I'd never done that before as a teacher, just like sat and talked to a kid about life that I didn't teach for like an hour. Because the next day, in teaching throughout the day, I took it stopped during one of my classes, like, all right, time out. I'm like, what? I'm like, I think something weird happened yesterday. I'm like, what? I'm like, all right. And I told them the story about the kid coming in and talking to me, and this 8th grader wasn't even teaching anymore, and like sitting down and talking to me. I'm like, is that weird? And they're like, yeah, that's kind of weird. It's like, I never had a teacher like that. For me personally, I had a teacher I really liked. For me, it was when I was in high school. It was my sophomore year English teacher, Mr. Purvis, who I thought was the greatest person ever. But I liked him because, for me, he was the first adult I ever saw who didn't hate his job and didn't seem to hate life. For me, up to that point, every adult I'd interacted with seemed to hate what they were doing. My parents hated their jobs. My grandparents hated their jobs. Like every teacher I'd seemed to have, I had some teachers I enjoyed, but they all seemed unhappy to be there and not wanting to interact with kids. But this guy was old. I mean, like fat, bald, like all of that. And like I've never seen a guy just smile. Like every day he was enjoying himself and coming up with new things. And I was like, wait a minute, like you're old and you don't hate life? Like that's a thing? And he was like, yeah. And I'm like, that's so weird. And so, but not like, I'm going to come sit after school in your room and talk to you about life kind of thing. I just enjoyed being in his room. So this kid that came in to talk to me, I thought was weird. And so I ran it by my 7th graders. I'm like, yeah, that's really weird. I'm like, is that a thing you guys do? They're like, no, I've never sat and talked to a teacher like that. I'm like, so it's not like a normal, like, no, it's not a normal thing at all. I'm like, all right. I was like, this is the only time it's ever happened to me too, so I thought the same thing. And I got ready to go back to teaching when I had a kid raise a hand. And I'm like, yeah? I remember the kid goes, so when we're in 8th grade, can we do that? I was like, what? He's like, can we come talk to you? And I was like, is that a thing you want to do? He's like, I don't know, maybe. And I was like, I guess. That's the thing. I'm like, I'm not going to turn you away if you want to. He's like, all right. And I was just like, as a teacher, that's not a thing I was ready for as a thing that was part of teaching. And from there, it happened again and again. And there's things where I had 8th graders who would just sort of come back and talk, and they just hang out in my room and we'd talk for a period of time. And I'd find out about life and how things were going and just get a chance to bond with them. And it was like, all right. And then a couple years go by, and things changed again. Because it wasn't an 8th grader. It was a high school kid. And there was a knock on my door, and I expected an 8th grader. I was like, yeah! And the door opened, and it was this high school kid who I'd not seen in years. And it was a girl, and she like leaned in, she's like, hey, can I come in? I'm like, what are you doing here? She's like, I was driving by, and I saw your car. I used to drive, not as creepy as you think. I used to have a picture over there of my car, and I tell the kids the story about my first car I ever had. It was a purple Grand Am. I love my purple Grand Am. Until I hit a deer. It's a long story. No, the deer was fine and walked away, totaled my car. I could have strangled that deer, but it just laughed at me. Sorry, still sad. And so she came in. I'm like, yeah, what's going on? She's like, I was driving by. I saw your car. I was like, thought I'd come by and talk. I'm like, sure. So then she sat down, and we talked for like an hour about life and what was going on in high school and how things had changed. Once again, I thought that was weird. It's like one thing for 8th graders because they're still in the same building, but this was a high school kid coming back. I'm like, this was out of your way. So once again, next day, my 7th graders, I'm like, something weird happened. And so I explained about the 8th grader, and after that, and I explained about this high school kid. I'm like, does that seem weird coming back to like talk to a junior high teacher? Like, yeah. I'm like, all right. So I was like, it's not just me. And so that picked up. And so I had like, time went by, in a couple weeks, and another kid came by like, hey, talking to Julie, and she said she came by to talk to you. Do you mind if I come in? I'm like, sure. And it picked up from there. And I had high school kids come back to talk to me. And then one day, it changed again. And a lot of the kids who came out, I have college kids too, that's not where I was going, but a good guess. College kids are just normal now. But most of the kids who came back to talk to me were not necessarily my best, brightest kids. A lot of times it was kids who were having tough home lives and had nowhere to talk to or no one to turn. And they were going down the wrong path, and they wanted someone to talk to. They'd come and talk to me, and I would listen and just not judge. It's just who I am. I don't judge. And so oftentimes it was kids who were on that path who'd come talk to me. Clayton was one of those kids. And so Clayton would come talk to me, and I had been trying, I loved Clayton. He was a great, he was a 7th grader. He was that kid that did not care what anyone thought about him, wore whatever clothes he wanted to, went and got clothes from Goodwill and wear them. He's like, I got this from Goodwill. And it was like Tonka truck shirts and stuff like that. And he just loved life and just smiled nonstop, but bad home life, didn't get along with Dad, was unhappy. And so was trying to help Clayton until one day it was his late sophomore year. And he knocked on the door. I'm like, Clayton, come in. And I could tell he was upset. And I'm like, Clayton, what's going on? He sat in the chair facing my desk, and he goes, Mr. Brovicast, it's bad. I'm like, what do you mean it's bad? I'm like, settle down. He's like, no, it's bad. He's like, I don't think you can come back from this. I'm like, whatever it is. I was like, we'll get through it. It's fine. He goes, no, you understand. I got arrested. I'm like, yeah, that's bad. I'm like, that's a new one. That's a first. And I'm like, so what'd you do? He goes, all right. So, you know things are bad at home with my dad. I'm like, yeah. He goes, so I started smoking pot. And I was like, Clayton. He's like, it gets worse. Okay. He was like, so I couldn't smoke at home because my dad, he's like, I wasn't at a friend's house, and so I started just smoking in my car. And I'm like, nah. He's like, I know. I was like, go ahead. He's like, I've been smoking in my car, and so I was behind the Best Buy up in Noblesville, and I was in the little parking lot back over there, and I was smoking. When a cop car drove by, saw my car, pulled in to check it out, found me, and he was like, I got busted. Handcuffs, they got taken me in, they impounded the car. He's like, everything. He's like, it's bad. He's like, I don't think this is something you come back from. He's like, my dad won't even talk to me right now. I was like, that's bad. He's like, I was like, well, but I was like, you made a poor choice. You've not ruined your life. I was like, we can still put you on the right path from here. He goes, you don't understand. You've not been here, Mr. Brovicast. And I went, well, actually, I have. He goes, what? I was like, well, I've been arrested. He goes, yeah, but I go, not just once. He goes, what? And I go, not just twice. He was like, what? And I'm like, 3 times. I've made poor choices, and it didn't ruin my life, and I came out okay, because I think this is okay. And so I told him the stories of my poor choices, and I was like, you'll come out of this okay. And he did. It was rough for a while, but he graduated, went to college, is now like an insurance salesman or something boring like that. I follow him on Facebook, fully social media. And so it was the first time I'd ever told that story to a kid. Like, I'd been holding on to that story for years. Like, I never told anybody about my arrest. Like, those died with me. But the fact that I could tell Clayton was hurting, and I thought it'd be something that would help him, and it seemed to, so I told him that story. A couple of years later, I had another girl, Lindsay, and she was the second of 3 kids in the family I taught, and they had a really bad home life. You can see a theme. Really bad home life going on. And Lindsay did a twofer. She got arrested for drugs and shoplifting because she had to really excel. She's like, getting arrested for one thing is for losers. And so she double dipped on that one, and so she also came back. And so I remember talking to Lindsay, and she was like, I messed up. And I'm like, well, now that I've told this story to Clayton, I was like, I was all right. I was like, so, been down that path. And so I told her the stories. And I got done. She's like, wow, those really helped. And I'm like, well, that was why I told you. She's like, I don't tell anyone these things. I was like, but I know you're hurting, you're in a dark place, I thought they might help you out. And she goes, I think you should tell your 7th graders that story. And I went, no. And she was like, why? I was like, because I'd like to keep teaching. So me telling my 7th graders about me getting arrested, that's not going to happen. But Lindsay was not only a kid I liked, she was persistent. And she kept coming back the next year and the next year. When she went to college, she kept coming back to see me when she was in college. And she kept... Yeah. Actually, she now has a kid, gets married and stuff like that. So, and so I've run into her. I like her. She's a good kid. Made a poor choice. She actually had the baby when unmarried and in college, but now she's marrying the baby daddy just 4 years later. She has a degree. She's actually a therapist because she went through a bad chunk of her life. But side story, back to the story here. And so she kept, every time she'd come back to visit me, she kept doing the same thing over and over again. She's like, those stories, I think you need to tell your kids. And so she wore me down. So one year I decided to do a test run. And I was like, all right, I'm going to try telling the stories, like a little bit of the stories to one of my classes. Super nervous. I was like all sweaty. Like, I'm like, so, I've got the story. I'm going to try and tell you. And so I went through it, and I told the kids, and they're like, oh, like the whole time their eyes are huge. And I was like, all right. And then I waited till the end of the year, and I'm like, don't get fired, don't get fired, don't get fired. And I didn't get fired. I'm like, I made it. And so the next year, I expanded a bit more and told more of that. And it's one of those things where it seemed to have a big impact to the kids coming back. Like, so you told these stories last year? Like, that was a one-time thing. I'm like, oh. And then I was like, all right, maybe it's not. And so I ended up telling more of it. It sort of went from there and increased. And so I had more and more kids coming back to talk to me, 8th graders and high schoolers. And one of the big topics I asked them is, when do you start seeing the poor choices? When is it that you see the darkness in life of that bad path opening up to you? And for many of them, their stories started in the summer after 7th grade or the beginning of 8th grade. For the vast majority of them, that's when they started seeing friends either smoking, doing drugs, the bad home lives and stuff along those paths, and that's when they started seeing it. And I realized, if I truly care about my students, and I like to think I do, this is my last chance to have an impact on them. My last chance to try and change the path that I see some of you on. And so I decided to use this last week to tell you about my past choices and the fact that you are going to screw up your life at some point, because it happens. It's just part of being human. You are going to do something moving forward where you think it is the thing that ends your life, where there is no recovering from it. What I'm going to do is show you 3 stories where I did that. 3 different times in my life where I thought, this is it. There's no coming back from it. But each time, I came back from it. And then Thursday is a whole different talk, which is kind of hard to preview until we get there. One last thing I want to pass along to you, which I've passed along to some of my students in the past, is that I know what it's like to come from a place of pain and issue. Because my family is a place of pain and issue. I love my parents. My mom and dad were great people. But my family is messed up, dysfunctional. I am the high point of my family. That when they hold up what they want normal to be, I am the one that they hold up to all my other family members and say, why can't you be like this? And they hold me up there, and I go, no one should try and be this.
Yeah.
This is scary. I'm like, I try to tell my students that, and they laugh, and they go, but you're so much better off than like everyone else in our family. And I'm like, that says more about you than about me. I've been arrested 3 times, but I've not been in jail. That puts me above most of my family. Because most of my family was like, arrested, that's it? Loser. And so all I've been is arrested. I also have no substance abuse issues, which makes me rare in my family because I come from a strong family of substance abuse.
Perfect.
Part of the joy of being in junior high is you're starting to realize how other families work. And I know this because junior high was where I figured out every family doesn't have alcoholic grandparents. I thought every family did because my grandparents were horrible alcoholics and we couldn't be around them after 5 o'clock because they were so horrible people. We would get kicked out of restaurants when we went out to eat at night. And I remember once talking to my best friend, and this was in 7th or 8th grade, and he was talking about going over to his grandparents at night, and I'm like, why? I'm like, isn't that going to be weird? He's like, no, it's my grandparents. I'm like, I know, but when they get drunk, and then he's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, when grandparents drink, he's like, mine don't do that. I'm like, they don't? I'm like, grandparents don't? I'm like, no. And so that was, for my family, just how things were. Same thing with like my uncle. I was both a cocaine addict and sold drugs because that's what uncles do. Apparently, also found out that's not what all uncles do, just mine. And so I found out as I got older that that's just how my family was. But my mom and dad worked hard to try and insulate me and my brother from all of that. So I had no idea how messed up my family was until we got older. So using that, let's talk about the first time I got arrested.
Yeah.
Now, the first time I got arrested, I put 1st grade over there, 2nd grade here, because it was the summer between the 2. So I don't know which way you want to look at it, because it was a summertime choice. And so it was, now also along the same things, this is the first year I get to show you a couple pictures, because I actually went back, and my daughter's, the big one, is in Winter Guard, and we had to go around for these different shows, and one of them was in my old hometown, Zionsville. And when we went there for the Winter Guard show, I was like, ooh, this is the town where Daddy first got arrested. Let's go find the house where I got arrested. And she was like, Daddy, you have the weirdest stories. And so I made my daughter come check out the house where I got arrested, and I creepily went to the front of it and took a picture, because that's what you do. And so this is the first year I get to show this picture. This is the house where it actually all happened. So, I was in 1st grade, or 2nd grade, right, whatever that time was. My younger brother was 2 years younger than me, and we were hanging around with an older kid in the neighborhood who was a bit of a bad influence. Not a horrible kid, but made some poor choices. My older kid, 4th grade. And so, it was the 4th grader, 4th grader, 2nd grader, kindergartner. And so we were like a little biker gang. We'd bike around the neighborhood, having a little biker gang kind of fun things. Until we got to, there was like they were building apartment complexes like behind us at the time. I remember we could go riding like the dirt hills over there. The normal fun kids have. until we found this house, a couple houses down from ours. And we were riding our bikes along a little sidewalk, and then you could see the windows were wide open, and it looked really bright and really empty. We thought that was weird. So we stopped and got out, walked up to the windows and looked in, and the house was completely empty. There was nothing in there. I've never seen a house like this before. I was like, a completely empty house? That's weird. And we like went through all the windows, like looking in there, and there's nothing in there whatsoever. As an adult, I know that the house was probably going to be put up for sale soon, which is why they moved everything out. As a kid, I thought it was just an abandoned house that anyone could do anything they wanted with. So we decided to be those people that could do something with it. And the fourth grader said, why don't we turn this into a clubhouse? And I said, yes, why don't we? And so we decided to go into the house. And so we went up to the front door to go in, and the front door was locked because the people who owned it were not stupid. And so we went around and tried all the different doors, and they were all locked. Even went around to the back, hopped over their gate, not their gate, their fence. It was a big wooden fence. We had to get onto like an air conditioning, and we sprang onto like little squirrels. And then went into it and got like a sliding glass door, but that was also locked. And like, we can't get in. And we were about ready to give up. We're walking back along the house on this side over there when the fourth graders spotted something. This, along this side of the house, had the little silver thing. You see where my story's going. And so there's three different ways a house can be built. One is it's on a slab, which means your house is flat against the ground. The other one is a basement, where your house is on the ground and there's a room underneath. And then option 3 is a crawl space, where between your house and the ground, there's an area about yay big for people to crawl through. And that's a way for people to get in there, like to work on the pipes and electricity and stuff like that. This house had a crawl space. So where it was sitting, there was a little area to crawl through. And we saw a little silver thing and little windows. And so the fourth grader was like, let's see if that window moves. And so he goes over to it, and it's like, and it opened up the whole thing, which made a little rectangle, like, about that big. And he was like, I bet we can get into the house if we go through there. But it was really dirty and dark, and there was definitely spiders and ants all in that area. So I said, I bet we can. Good luck. And I said, the fourth grader, I was like, you're the one that's going to go in there, because I'm not going in there. And the fourth grader went over to me and was like, I'm too big. And I think, much like you see a cat when it gets scared and fluffs up its fur, because he went over to me and was like, look, I won't fit. It was like, ah, and he's like, there's no way my giant fourth grade body is going to fit that little thing. And I'm like, oh, that's a good point. So, being the genius brother I am, turned to my younger brother. As would you do with younger siblings. And I'm like, Nick, you're going to go in there. And he said, no. And I said, not an option. You're going in there. To which his counter-argument was to fall into a ball, curl up, start shaking and crying. And he was like, no, no. And I'm like, good argument. Hard to fight that one. And so the fourth grader was like, hey, I think it's you. Because I was a tall, skinny stick of a child. And he was like, we can just roll you up like a newspaper and throw you right in there. And I was like, but I don't want to go in there because it's scary. But I didn't say that because I really wanted to impress the fourth grader. Instead, what I said was, okay. And so I remember slithering over it like a little caterpillar. I was like, and it was just as awful as I imagined. And they were like pushing my hands through, and it was like cobwebs. And I then like and pulled my body, and it was like, I just want to die. And I remember like getting all the way through to my waist and looking around, and it was dark, like darky dark. You could see the outline of a house, like this little orange line of the sunlight, like hitting that little edge. So I could see like this little orange line, like the middle of it was dark. And I'm like, it's dark. I want to come back out. Like there's no way to get in. And I started scooting backwards. And the fourth grader grabbed my feet and pushed. And I was like, and I don't want to. And then, out of nowhere, a beam of light, whoo, shines down in the middle of this whole darkness. Darkness everywhere. Like God turned on a flashlight, and just like right there. I'm like, there's light. And he was like, go towards the light. I was like, I don't want to. When he pushes me, and I'm like, okay. I'm like, and I started crawling. I'm like, oh my God, I just want to die. I kept going towards this beam of light that was beaming down. And I remember getting to it, and it was like beams and the floorboards above me, my ceiling. And it was like all of a sudden, like it opened up, and there was just this square of like nothingness. I could see light coming through it. And I'm like, I'm going up into the house now. And they're like, okay, and they like took off running to come around to the back door. I remember I like stood up this little square. I was like, I got up through it, and there was a giant metal like tank next to me on one side, and a big metal loud rumbly device over here. Looking back on it now, it was the water heater and the furnace. And so I was coming up like the utility closet. But I popped up, and for some reason, this house had just like a hole cut out in the floor to get access. I'm guessing maybe they were like doing repairs down there and had to put the thing back. And so the reason I could see was it had one of these doors where the sun had been beaming down and hitting those slats and then going straight through there into that hole in the floor, and that's what had beckoned me towards it. And so I got up into the, I remember I stood in a little area, I was able to turn my body sideways and go between the water heater and the furnace. I was like, and got through it. I was able to push my hand into the little thing. I pushed it and it snapped shut to one side, and I stepped into the house. And it was like, as I stepped into it, and I was like, yeah. And so I was in there. To my left, as I step in, I did this from memory as best I could. I stepped out of here, and there was a hallway with the front door. There was a wall here, and there was like lights up. There was like the windows up in the top area, and then there was the kitchen over to my right. I turned to my right, looking down that way. There's a sliding glass door, and my brother in the fourth grade, like I go face pressed up against it. And I remember I felt so cool. I was like, so I went walking over to him like, I'm gonna let you in. This is my house. And I went like, and threw the door open, and they both came in. We're all excited, like jumping around, like high-fiving each other, and we ran around that house and played, and it was as awesome as I'd ever dreamed it to be. Running around, hide and seek, playing tags, running and just falling down the stairs, having a wonderful time. We were there for hours. Get done, shut everything back up, go back out the rear sliding glass door, shut it behind us, and left for the day. No problems whatsoever. Next day, we decided we're going to come back. But this time, we're going to pack our backpacks full of toys. And so we brought Hot Wheels and G.I. Joes and Transformers. And we had a wonderful day the second day. And we had little wars and fights and little cars everywhere. And it was the best thing ever. And we left some of our toys there for the next day. And we went back for like 4 or 5 days straight. Got to the point where I talked my mom into making us sandwiches. And I was like, we have a fork we're going to go play it. She's like, that's nice to hear. Here's your sandwich. I'm like, ah. She's like, didn't know. I was like, that's code for breaking and entering. It's a felony. And so like, we took off, like, had a great time. Until one day, we're sitting in the kitchen. And then we were playing with the little rolly cars. We were rolling them back and forth. It was the best things. You could roll them and we wouldn't get in trouble. At home, it'd make marks on the floor or marks on the wall. We could roll them. But here, it was like, whoo, smack. Yeah! It was the greatest thing ever. All three of us were like rolling back and forth, and we had toys all over the kitchen. And all of a sudden, front door. And we hear jangle, 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 rugger, jangle, and like the keys and the door opening. We hear a voice on the other side of it. Big, loud, gruff voice. And the three of us, eyes got huge. We looked at each other like, ah! And we knew bad stuff was getting ready to happen. So we had to run. Smart us would have gone out the glass door into the backyard and scampered away. But the door was shut. So we went to the quickest area we could get to, which was deeper into the house. Aww. So we ran this way and ran into this room because there was a wall between this room and the scary monster that was coming in. And so we ran to this wall, and all three of us whoop, went up against this wall, and we could hear the front door opening and the person coming in. And it sounded like he was 12 feet tall and hairy. Just like, as he came walking through there, like the whole time, like hard like that, like looking at you, like, we're all going to die. I knew, as a second grader, legally, this man was allowed to kill us because we were in his house. So we knew that we were going to be fighting for our life, because as soon as he found us, he was allowed to just pick us up and just pull off our heads and put the bodies to the side, like, silly children, and like eat the bodies if he wanted to. This was all going through my head. I have a bit of an imagination. So we're sitting there, and I remember him getting to that door I left open, because that's how we kept getting in every day. He's like, why is this door open? He's like, getting a draft in here, like it shuts it. And I kept walking, I hear him get to the kitchen, and all of a sudden he's like, toys! Why are there? And he starts like cussing, toys everywhere throughout this whole area, and starts yelling, and we're freaking out because he is literally like 2 feet behind us, right around this edge, right there. And the three of us had the same idea at the same time. And we just scream, turn to our right, and run. And all three of us run there, around the corner, and head for that front door. And so, looking back on this as an adult, if I were going into a house that suddenly seemed haunted because random toys are appearing everywhere, there's all of a sudden doors that are open when they shouldn't, and you're standing there trying to figure what it is, and screaming happens from right next to you, I would choose to wet myself and pass out. This man did not. So the three of us run from there, around the corner to the front door. We get to the front door, and I know in movies, when you see the girl running from the killer and she gets to a door and she can't open, you're like, what kind of idiot can't open a door? I'm telling you right now, that door with that man behind me was the most challenging thing I think I've ever done in my life. Because I'd been opening doors for like 5 years. I was like 8 years old. I'm like, fuck, door master. But I got to that door, and like they're next to me, like the fourth grader's like pounding on my shoulder, like, I got the door, I got the door. I'm like twisting it like nothing. I'm like, the door's not doing a door thing. And then all of a sudden, it was like, ka-ching, and I opened, like, yeah! I pulled the door open, and it hit my feet, and then slammed back shut again. And I'm like, ooh, I'm like my hand was empty and the door was shut. I'm like, that's not what doors do. I said like that thought. I'm like, I don't understand. And I was like, ah. And I reached it again and then pulled it and then moved my feet and swung the door open. And then all three of us go running out the door at the same time. Being the genius criminals we are, all three of us make beelines for our own houses. And so fourth grader came out and went that way because his house was down that way in the court. My brother and I came out this way and go in that direction towards our house. My brother, who is now taller, thinner, and better looking than me, but at the time was smaller and roly-polier than I was, in kindergarten, came running all the way out to the, he's like, he came running all the way out to the sidewalk for safety purposes, because he didn't trust himself running on grass, came down to the sidewalk, ran that way. Me, my willy little frame was like, I'm just running! And so I came around the corner and just ran through the grass. And I remember this like tree and like house, and like it was the fastest I'd ever run. I remember looking over to my brother who's running along the sidewalk next to me. We made eye contact, like, we're gonna make it. And he's like, oh no. I was like, he's like looking at me and I see his eyes get really big. And I'm like, why are your eyes getting? I turn around, like, there's a guy right behind me. I'm like, no! I turn it like as fast as I can possibly go. And I didn't get very far. I was like, oh, like I'm not gonna, like the hand on my shoulder. I remember as it happened, like looking at my brother, my eyes got big. I didn't like that. Keep running. He was like, oh no, stop it. Just kept on going. Looking back on it, I don't think I made it out of his yard. But I felt like I'd been running for miles. I'm like, how did you catch me? But I think the guy was like, step, turn, grab. But at the time, it felt like I was running forever. At this point, one, how this happens and people don't call the police, when a man goes into a house, door flies open, 3 small children come running, screaming out of it. He runs out, grabs small child, drags it back in the house, and they're just like, it's a Tuesday! And then I'm going from there. But the guy grabbed me, turned me around, and I remember at this point, I was pretty sure he was going to kill me legally. I was like, any moment. He was like, why are you in my house? Which I responded with, like, ah! And he was like, what are you doing in there? And I'm like, don't kill me! And he was like, what? He was like, fine. You won't talk to me, you'll talk to the police. And he took me back to his house. And tomorrow I'll finish out that one, and we'll get into our next story from there.